What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicy Jet podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rooney, and we have a very fun episode today because we've got a few things to talk about. Number one, we're going to talk about minicamp because the Jets just wrapped up their minicamp. There will be no football for the next 6 weeks until training camp starts, so we will rapid fire go through some of the things that happened at minicamp. Of course, before that, we'll do a trivia question. Then we'll go into our gym break, as always. A lot of stuff going on in New York sports that we need to talk about. And then I have a fun little, I love the episode we did last week where we talked about, some of the players from the drought that would make like our all drought team to see if we would make the playoffs. Honestly, I don't know if we would make the playoffs because we were basically the 2015 New York Jets. So it was a tough one. But what I want to do now is I did a bunch of research, went back in time a little bit, and I want to do the Hall of Famers that were Jets, but they aren't remembered as Jets. So it's, can we build a top tier roster of players that you don't really remember as Jets, but were really good in the NFL, whether they actually made the Hall of Fame or not. So I'm actually really excited to do this because there was a lot of crazy names that I've been throwing around, and it's kind of funny to see them all on one sheet of paper. So we'll do that, and then we'll wrap up. So why don't we start off with our trivia question? So there is a very popular snack that maybe some of you 90s kids might remember, Uncrustables. Uncrustables are essentially a peanut butter and jelly with the crust cut off that you kind of put in the freezer, you thaw it out, and then you give it to your kid to eat for lunch or whatever. Well, the NFL loves Uncrustables. And I heard this on Travis Kelce's podcast with his brother Jason, where he talked about how Uncrustables are probably the thing he eats the most throughout the week, which got me thinking, like, do NFL players just eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the time? And the answer is yes. So it's one of the most popular foods for an NFL player to eat during the week. So my trivia question is, which team in the NFL eats the most Uncrustables per week? And then the second part of the question is, how many Uncrustables per week do they eat? So kind of a weird one, but we'll come back at the end to answer that question. But all right, let's get a little bit into minicamp here because it just wrapped up. It was 3 days of mandatory minicamp. Everyone had to be there. Luckily, the Jets had 100% attendance. So everybody showed up, which is great to see, especially that Sauce and Garrett both showed up. They both said they want to be Jets for life. Garrett's already said that. Sauce was a little more professional in his answers and didn't give away too much, but he said everything right. He was very mature in the way he answered his questions. But it sounded like his team's talking to the Jets, and it sounds like both of these are going to get done sooner rather than later. I'm hoping it's before training camp. My guess is one might be before training camp, one might be before the season starts. The ideal scenario would be they both sign a new deal together, and then they can do like a whole celebration, a whole press conference together as a team, show that these are our stalwarts that are going to be the face of the New York Jets for the next 5-7 years. I think that's the right way to do it. Will it happen? I don't know. As long as they both get done, that's really all I care about, because it's very rare that we get two talents like this on the New York Jets that are young. So let's lock them down now before it's too late and before somebody else does and, we don't have them anymore. So that was a little bit about Sauce and Garrett. One other thing that actually came out of minicamp about Garrett, the guy is getting the ball a lot. I think one of the reporters, when the media was actually able to go to practice, was logging all of Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor's throws. And I think out of like 15 completions, Garrett got 10 of them. So he's really going to be hogging up a lot of the receptions this year. And it's no surprise with Justin Fields and his history playing together at Ohio State. So very cool to see that. A couple other things. It sounds like Fields and Tyrod Taylor played pretty well in minicamp. There's no pads. Once again, there's helmets on and things like that, but nothing crazy. So you can't put too much stock into it because the pass rush isn't really real. The offensive line and defensive line don't really do much during these drills. So I don't know. I'm not going to hang my hat on it, but it sounds like Justin Fields is progressing and playing better. We'll see what that really means, or if it's just fluff from the media because there's nothing else to talk about. I am still going to wait and see how it goes. I'll believe it when I see it, type of a thing. So that was a little bit about Justin Fields. We talked about the GoPros being on the helmet, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that's helping him out. His big thing is he is so slow to process and make decisions when he sees a defense out there. So what can we do now to get him more prepared in this new system by Tanner Engstrand so that when game one comes in MetLife against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got Highsmith and Watt coming off the edges. Can he make a quick decision to get rid of the ball? And that's going to be running the ball, play action, all that good stuff, getting Garrett the ball as much as possible to help us out there. The only other things, Breece Hall actually spoke to the media. This is the first time in a while. And someone asked him, like, hey, you were a part of these trade rumors during the offseason. How'd you feel about it? He thought he was getting traded, but then Aaron Glenn actually called him up and said, do you really think that we want to trade you? And Breece was like, I don't know. It sounds like you do. And he said, of course not. You're our RB1. Like, we want to have you here. We're excited to have you here. And that's a great sign. And it also shows maturity from our head coach in Aaron Glenn to actually reach out and say, hey, we want you. And I know you're upset by the rumors you're hearing, but these are not true. So I thought that was really interesting about Breece Hall. I think this could be a really big year for him because, look, he's on the last year of his contract. We can essentially run him into the ground if we want to, and then franchise tag him next year if we need to. So I expect the Jets to have the most rushing attempts in the NFL this year. The ground and pound is back, baby. With all the good offensive linemen that we have, the athletic offensive linemen we have, let's get Breece Hall out in space. We can also throw him the ball too. I still think he's struggled with drops, but he can do it. We've seen him catch the ball out of the backfield before, and it could be a weapon for him. So I think he's going to be a good player this year as long as he stays healthy. And it sounds like last year he wasn't that healthy. One of the things that came out of his press conference is he said, I kind of wish I sat it down a couple games because it seemed like the health was getting to him. So really interesting stuff from Breece, and I'm excited that he's like locked in and ready to like show off his talent. So good stuff there. Finally, the last thing from minicamp is just Aaron Glenn. The more I hear about the things that are going on with Aaron Glenn, the more excited I get. And I'm trying not to get excited for this season because I don't, if I'm realistically looking at the team, I don't think we're going to be that good. But when I keep hearing about how great of a leader Aaron Glenn is, I just keep getting excited. Like, he is this hard-nosed, preaches competition type coach. He's drilling people in these mini camps, OTAs, things like that. But he's also a former player. So the last day of minicamp, the third day, what does he do? It's like they stretch and then they just have fun the whole practice. Like, he had the offensive lineman going out to catch passes, which was super embarrassing. I think the only person that could like really catch was AVT, just because he's an athletic freak. So it's just like fun stuff like that to keep it lighthearted, and he just understands when to push the buttons and drive the competition and pull back. And I think all of our other coaches were just trying to be best friends with all the players. And it sounds like Aaron Glenn is really trying to build a winning team, but we'll see how he does when his back's against the wall. When he loses a couple games, how is Aaron Glenn going to react? So that's the really interesting thing to come. So with that, that is the New York Jets offseason program. It's over. So now for the next 6 weeks, there's nothing. All the players are gone. They can work out. They can go on vacation, do whatever. I saw like Garrett Wilson with his dad out in California, I believe. So everyone can just like go do their thing. And training camp will start July 22nd. So I imagine the next 3-4 weeks, tickets to training camp will start to come out, and then it's really going to be back to football again. And we start a little bit earlier because we have a new head coach and all that stuff. So yeah, so it's going to be all quiet in Jets land unless we get those extensions. Those are the big ones. So my only hope for the New York Jets is please no one get in trouble. That's number one. Don't get arrested. Don't do anything stupid. Just, it sounds like we have a lot of good humans on this team, so I think we'll be okay. And then number two, don't get hurt. Don't be playing basketball or something else like that and pull something, tear your ACL, nothing like that. Knock on wood. Please just go play golf with Sauce Gardner. That's all you need to do for the next 6 weeks while you also work out and all that good stuff. So that is it. That's minicamp. It's all over, and we'll talk more about it as we get closer to training camp. But it's going to be a couple weeks now of just talking about some nostalgia, which is what I really want to do here. But before I do that, let's take a pause and let's do a gym break. All right, so if you're new here, a gym break. I am a Jets, Islanders, Mets, and Knicks fan. JIM spells Jim with a silent K at the end. Obviously, we were just talking about the Jets. Let's go into the Islanders. The Islanders, there's no new news, but the NHL draft is coming in 2 weeks. We are getting there. It's so close. I'm very excited to see what we decide to do with the number 1 overall pick. But until then, no news. The New York Mets. Ooh, rough weekend for the Mets. They just got swept by the Rays, which really stinks because both the Phillies and Braves are starting to play a little bit better. And then for Father's Day, we actually went as a family, took Dad to the Mets game at Citi Field for Game 3. And of course, it was the worst home game the Mets have had the whole year. They lost 9-0. A position player had to pitch at one point. It was a disaster. So definitely not a fun day to be out at the ballpark, but we made it fun. Just like, doing our Father's Day thing. So that was interesting. But now the Mets have series against the Phillies and the Braves coming up. Well, Braves first, then the Phillies. So this is like a pivotal stretch of the next 10 games here. So we'll see what they can do. I still feel good about what we got going. We still have the best record in baseball. So, all is not lost. It's okay to lose some games. And I'm glad we lost to a team like the Rays while the Yankees got swept by the Red Sox rather than losing to the Phillies, Braves, Nationals, Marlins, or anyone like that. So, or the Dodgers or one of those Padres, any of those good teams. So we'll see what happens with the Mets. Big week coming up here. All right, and then the Knicks. Oh boy, the Knicks. So the Knicks obviously fired Tom Thibodeau, which we talked about last week. The big thing now is we're hearing reports that they're just calling teams about their current head coach to try to get them to coach the Knicks. So like we heard about Jason Kidd, for example, and there's a few other teams out there. And I heard this hilarious analogy, because this is like kind of embarrassing right now that we're like calling teams that have coaches under contract to interview for the Knicks. It's very strange. I heard this hilarious analogy. I don't know who said it, but I think it's so funny. But essentially what the Knicks are doing, it's like if you're married and you've been in a relationship for a long time and you finally decide, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm going to get a divorce from my wife. You get a divorce. And then instead of playing the field to go find your next wife, you call up all your friends and ask them if you can marry their wives. That's exactly what the Knicks are doing right now. So I am very nervous because it sounds like the Knicks don't have a plan for who this next head coach is going to be. But we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I guess there's no rush. The finals are still going on. It's not like the season has actually ended yet. So we'll see what happens with the Knicks, but it really makes me nervous. And then, that's it. So that's our gym break. The Mets are really the big one that you got to worry about right now, and then the Knicks are the one that we're going to watch throughout the offseason to see what happens. So I'm sure we'll have more info as the days and months go on. All right, so that is our gym break. Before we get into this Jets all-time Hall of Fame non-Jets team, which is going to be really interesting. I don't know what to call it. I guess we just call it the what it? No, the almost Jet. Nope, they were Jets, so I can't say almost Jets Hall of Fame. Maybe it's like Jets Gold Jackets, kinda. The all-time Jets cameo Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame, but make it Jets. I don't know. Before we get into that, I do want to share one story because it obviously was Father's Day this past weekend, and I want to share a really funny story about a Jets game that me and my dad went to together, and my brother was there too. That is just a Jets game that is seared into my head because of what my dad did during this game. So I'll take you back to 2008. The New York Jets have legendary quarterback Brett Favre at the helm, and we're playing the Buffalo Bills, and this was actually not at MetLife, it was at Giants Stadium still. So we're at Giants Stadium. The Jets are actually playing a pretty good game. We're up 14-3 on the Bills after the first quarter, so you feel pretty good. And, you have guys like Thomas Jones running in touchdowns. You've got Jay Feely as our kicker. We're throwing in Jericho Cotchery and Lavernius Coles, while the Bills have J.P. Lossman and Marshawn Lynch as their running back. He's their running back. We have Leon Washington. Stevie Johnson's on the Bills. So it's a real throwback. So we're winning 14-3, but then we go into halftime, only up 21-17. Third quarter goes on. Nothing really happens. 21-20. Jets are beating the Bills. And then all of a sudden, the Bills kind of take over a little bit. It's late in the fourth quarter, and it is 27-24. The Jets throw a pick. Brett Favre throws a pick late in the game. He had 2 interceptions on the day. Not a good day for Brett Favre. And the Bills get the ball back. My dad is furious. He is so pissed. So what does he do? He looks at me and my brother. He says, and I'm like, what am I? This was 2008. So I'm in high school at this point. My brother's probably in middle school. He turns to us and he goes, pack up your shit. We're leaving. And I just like remember him having like a bunch of stuff in his hands. And he's like ready to walk us out. And I throw a fit. I'm like, we are not leaving. We're staying. What happens maybe a minute and a half later? For some reason, there's 2 minutes and 6 seconds left in the game. For some reason, instead of just winding the clock down to the 2-minute warning, J.P. Lossman rolls out right. They're already winning the game. He rolls out right. It's 27-24. He rolls out right. Abram Elam, our safety, comes from the backside of the line, forces a fumble, and somehow the big cat, Shaun Ellis, scoops up the ball and runs it like, I don't know, 20 yards, maybe it's 15 yards. He doesn't run it. He like rumbles, bumbles, and stumbles into the end zone for a touchdown. Jets are up 31-27. Couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. And now we won't, like the Jets have been horrible the past 10 years, but we really won't leave games that early anymore unless it's like really at the end and we're down by multiple scores because of that moment. So I know Father's Day was on Sunday, a funny moment and I rub this in my dad's face whenever we talk about it because it was just a hilariously positive moment because we ended up winning. But thank God we didn't leave. That's all I know. So shows him what he knows about New York Jets football. Got to stay. So with that, now that we mentioned Brett Favre, let's do our Jets Hall of Fame team. So remember, this is players who played for the Jets that will not be remembered for playing for the Jets, but were good football players and or NFL Hall of Famers. So I want to build a roster here. We're going to do this pretty quick. Hopefully we get it done in the next 10 minutes, but we'll rip through. So I'm going to go position by position. We're going to do all the positions on offense and defense, and we're going to do head coach because that one's an easy one. And we're going to see if we can put together a roster that's actually a Hall of Fame, could win the Super Bowl level roster. Now, this is them at their prime. This is not them when they played for the Jets. So, for example, we just talked about Brett Favre. We're talking about Brett Favre when he was at his peak with the Packers, not when he was with the Jets. So, at quarterback, we have a few different options. Obviously, Brett Favre we talked about. The most recent one, Aaron Rodgers. And then a few others that are like names that you might not remember were Jets. So you got Boomer Esiason. Obviously, he's a big figure in New York sports now, so people do remember him, but he was really just good with the Bengals. You look at Vinny Testaverde, he hopped around a lot. He actually played really well with the Jets, but he was a Raven, a Buccaneer, he was a Patriot, a Panther. He was all over the place. Mark Brunell, legendary quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, played for the Jets, backing up Mark Sanchez. Joe Flacco, obviously a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Michael Vick, one of the most prolific playmakers in NFL history. Neil O'Donnell went to the Super Bowl with the Steelers before coming to the Jets. Then you get like players like Jeff Blake, Tim Tebow, who didn't really, they were names. They weren't that great. So for me, if I had to pick one right now as our quarterback, I'm picking Aaron Rodgers. I know we are all burned by what happened recently in history, but he's probably going to go down as the best thrower of the football of all time. It's going to be like him or Dan Marino. But not the best quarterback of all time, but he's probably in my top 5, at least in my era. Like I didn't see some of the players before, 1990 essentially. So I'm going with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Running back, this is another fun one. We've had some really good running backs over, especially the recent years, probably the past 25 years. You got Matt Forte, Frank Gore, who will be a Hall of Famer, LaDainian Tomlinson, Hall of Famer, John Riggins, Hall of Famer. CJ2K, Chris Johnson, who ran for the Titans for 2,000 yards. Dalvin Cook, Le'Veon Bell, who's going to be a legendary Steeler. Thomas Jones, who's one of my favorite Jets of all time, and he only played here for like 2-3 years. And then, of course, I had to add this name because just a legend in himself, Danny Woodhead. Went on to play well for the Chargers, Patriots, things like that. So for me, I'm going to pick 2 running backs. I'm going to go with, this one's really easy, LaDainian Tomlinson, number 1. One of the best running backs in NFL history, probably top 5 all time. He can do it all. He's like going to be my agile running back. He can also catch out of the backfield too, and he can pass. So I think he's a great first option. And then number 2, I'm going to go with another Hall of Famer. I'm going to go with John Riggins. John Riggins started off with the Jets, but really made his money with the Washington Redskins. Ends up becoming a Hall of Famer, one of the better running backs to ever play. And it's actually funny, when we were scouting Warren, the tight end from Penn State, he actually wore 44 because of John Riggins, which is really funny, which we thought there was some Jet connection there, which was interesting. So those are my running backs. So I got so far Aaron Rodgers, LaDainian Tomlinson, John Riggins. That's amazing. Wide receivers. We got Brandon Marshall. I don't know how he's going to be remembered. He could be remembered as a Jet, but I think maybe the Bears or Broncos is probably more up his alley. Not really the Dolphins or anything like that. Santonio Holmes, obviously Super Bowl winning catch with the Steelers. Art Monk, who was a Jet for a short period of time and then went on to have an amazing career. Plexico Burress won the Super Bowl with the Giants. Andre Rison, who played for, I think it was the Chiefs, was most of his career. Terrell Pryor was a funny one just because he played quarterback and then was like a wide receiver for us. Devontae Adams, obviously, and then Randall Cobb. So for me, this one's kind of tough. I got to go with Art Monk because he's a Hall of Famer. I think I'm also going to go with Devontae Adams because he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And my third one, I'm really stuck between Brandon Marshall and Santonio Holmes. I'll probably go Brandon Marshall. I don't know how I feel about it. Holmes would be really awesome because he won us like 3 games by himself in 2010, which was just absolutely insane. I think it was like the Browns, the Lions, and the Texans 3 games in a row. He caught game-winning touchdowns, 2 of them in overtime. Well, the Lions wasn't a touchdown. It was to get us in field goal range, which was awesome. So yeah, let's go with Brandon Marshall, Art Monk, Devontae Adams as our receivers. So very good skill position players. This is where it starts to go downhill. Tight end, ugly. We've never had good tight ends. It's insane. Keith Jackson, Doug Jolly, who we traded a second-round pick for, our first-round pick for. Unbelievably horrible trade. So bad. Bubba Franks, Kellen Winslow. This one's a curveball. Ken Wisenhunt, former NFL coach, was tight end for the Jets. Johnny Mitchell, Austin Safarian Jenkins, who was the Buccaneer. I think I might just pick Bubba Franks because I loved him when I was younger. But there's no good answer here. There is no good tight end that we've stolen from another team that is good. I think we've just never had a tight end in history, just to be totally honest with you. So tight end really doesn't matter. I'm taking Bubba Franks because, I don't know, Packers and Brett Favre connection. Maybe that'll be something. I don't know. I don't think they ever played together. So yeah, that's a really rough one. All right, let's go to tackle in general, and we can fill left and right. Tackle, we've had some okay ones. Tyron Smith, Ryan Clady, Dwayne Brown, Big Jumbo Elliott. He could be remembered as a Jet because of the Monday Night Miracle, but he played a lot of his career with the Giants too. So I didn't know whether to include him or not. Jason Fabini, and then Damian Woody. Woody was another one. Could be remembered as a Jet just because he's around the team so often and on ESPN and all that stuff. But really, he won a Super Bowl with the Patriots. He played for the Lions for a long time. So he's another tough one. So I think for me, I am obviously going with Tyron Smith in his prime at left tackle. He's going to go down as a Hall of Fame left tackle, one of the best left tackles to ever play football. So I'm going to put him there. If we're counting Damian Woody, I will put him at right tackle. You could also put Morgan Moses in this too. But I'm going to put Damian Woody at right tackle if he counts. If he doesn't count, it's going to be Dwayne Brown. So it's going to be up to you to decide whether you think this is allowed or not. But either Tyron Smith and Damian Woody or Tyron Smith and Dwayne Brown. Those are my options. I'm gonna lock in Damian Woody though. At guard, one of the greatest guards to ever play the game, played for the New York Jets for about 3 years. He was on that Brett Favre team too, which is interesting. Alan Faneca from the Steelers. That's where he really made his money. Pete Kendall played for a little while for the Jets. Willie Colon, another former Steeler. Kelechi Osemele, Dave Zott. Those are some of the guys that I picked out that weren't like homegrown Jets, that were like kind of from other teams. So this is another one that's pretty easy for me. I'm going to go Alan Faneca on the left side. So if you tell me we have Tyron Smith and Alan Faneca on the left, and I have LaDainian Tomlinson in the backfield, I think I'm going to be okay on the left side. And then I'm going to go Willie Colon on the right side. He's just a mauler. He's just so aggressive that I think I'm going to stick with him. And then at center, no options for center. If you are an older Jets fan, please tell me if there were other centers. But I think we were really lucky. For like 40 years, we only had like 3 centers, which is absolutely insane. So yeah, my options I put were Ryan Khalil, came from the Panthers. And then I put Kevin Mawai on here, but I think he's a Jet. Like, I don't think he's a Seahawk. So I'm not even going to count him. I'm going to go with Ryan Khalil's at center. I'm not happy with it. I don't think he's I don't think he's a great pick, but with the offensive line he has around him, I think he'll be okay. All right, so our offense, Brett Favre, LaDainian Tomlinson, John Riggins, Brandon Marshall, Art Monk, Devontae Adams, Bubba Franks, Tyron Smith, Alan Faneca, Ryan Khalil, Willie Colon, and Damian Woody. Not bad. A lot of good skill position players. Really good left side of the offensive line. We'll see about the rest. I don't know about Willie Colon and Ryan Khalil. And the tight end's horrible, so it doesn't even matter. We'll just play. Maybe we'll do a 4th receiver, and we'll get Santonio Holmes in there, and we'll just not even play a tight end. All right, defensive side of the ball. Let's start with D tackle. Not a ton, once again. I know who my answers are here, but I don't love them. Mike Pennell, who just won a couple Super Bowls with the Chiefs. Sheldon Rankins, who was a Saint for a long time and then just went to the Texans after us. Al Woods, long time Seattle Seahawk. And then Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins, obviously a Carolina Panther, went to University of Maryland. If he didn't get hurt, what was that, 2009? If he didn't get hurt in 2009 or 2010, we go to the Super Bowl. He was our best player on defense, no doubt. He was unbelievable that year. He tears his ACL, I think it was 2009. And that was it. The defense just opened up and there was nothing we can do. He was just unreal. So I'm definitely taking Chris Jenkins, no doubt. And then I think I'm going to take Al Woods. So Chris Jenkins can rush the passer. Al Woods is just the big, meaty, fatty guy we're putting right in the middle. And he played for forever. So I think he's a good person to put there. All right, defensive end. Jason Babin, longtime Jacksonville Jaguar. He was the guy who ripped or pulled the hair out of the running back when he was down in Jacksonville. Hilarious. And just ripped his hair out. Vinnie Curry, longtime Philadelphia Eagle. Hassan Reddick, disgusting. I'm not going to pick him. Hugh Douglas, another Eagle, was drafted by the Jets, though. Trevor Price, longtime Baltimore Raven, brought over with Rex Ryan. Kimo von Oelhoffen, who I used to love to play with in Madden when I was growing up. Longtime Pittsburgh Steeler. So for me, I am going to go with Hugh Douglas on one side because he was the defensive rookie of the year when the Jets drafted him, and then we just shipped him off. God knows why. And then I'm probably going to go Jason Babin on the other side. I don't love my options here. Just because he could actually rush the passer. He could actually disrupt the quarterback. So D-line not fantastic, but I like Hugh Douglas, so we'll see how that goes. Linebackers, I had a really tough time with this one because I don't know who's going to be remembered as a Jet and who's not. Like C.J. Mosley, are you going to remember him more as a Jet or as a Raven? Big question. Bart Scott, you going to remember him more as a Jet or a Raven? Jonathan Vilma, are you going to remember him more as a Jet or a Saint? Demario Davis, I'm assuming he's going to be a Saint, so I'm going to put him as one of my linebackers. There's also Pepper Johnson, who played for the Giants for a long time. Larry Izzo, who was a long-time New England Patriot, who also played special teams. And then Avery Williamson, who played for the Tennessee Titans. If I can do Demario Davis and C.J. Mosley, I'll lock that in. If I could do Demario Davis and Jonathan Vilma, I'll lock that in. I don't know enough. Like, Larry Izzo didn't really play linebacker much. He wasn't like an outstanding linebacker. He was an outstanding special teamer. That's where he made his money. So, and Pepper Johnson, I don't know enough about because I wasn't really around for him. So if anyone wants to vote for Pepper Johnson, you let me know in the comments of this episode. But I think I'm going to lock in Demario Davis and Jonathan Vilma just because I'm unsure if C.J. Mosley should count. And I think he's going to count as a Jet because he was a Jet longer than he was a Raven. So, boom, lock it in. Okay, now let's go to secondary. The secondary is unreal. unreal players in this secondary. Cornerback. I want to give a shout out to the Super Bowl winning New York Jets team, Johnny Sample. He had a couple picks in the playoffs and one in the Super Bowl to help us win. The only reason I know him is because I watched the Super Bowl like 50 times on DVD. So I'm putting Johnny Sample on there. He's only a Jet for like 2 or 3 years, but he was probably one of the better players on their defense. I got Tremaine Johnson on here. Definitely not picking him. James Hasty, which was a longtime Chief. Antonio Cromartie, wasn't sure if he's going to be remembered as a Jet, as a Charger. Eileen, he's going to be remembered as a Jet, so I'm not going to include him in my answer. Morris Claiborne, who was a longtime Cowboy. And then, of course, the Hall of Famer, Ty Law, who was a 2-time New York Jet, but will always be remembered as a New England Patriot. So I am going to go with Ty Law at one corner, and I am going to go with James Hasty as my other corner to lock down those two sides of the ball. Now, the good news is, if you're iffy on James Hasty, the safeties that we've had are unbelievable. I think I have to pick 3 of them because I can't pick 2. So Adrian Amos, Hall of Famer Steve Atwater, Hall of Famer Ronnie Lott, Hall of Famer Ed Reed, and then I put LaRon Landry in there just for some muscle because he's got big biceps. So obviously you have to go Ronnie Lott. You obviously have to go Ed Reed. Those are 2 of the greatest safeties to ever play the game of football. You got to have Steve Atwater on this team. Like, where does he go? He has to play somewhere. So I am happy to take one of the corners off the field to put Steve Atwater on the field. I'm happy to take one of the linebackers off the field to put Steve Atwater on the field because he was that good of a player. So really tough safety room. I'm taking 3 of them. I don't care what I have to do to maybe I'll get rid of, I don't know, Jason Babin. We don't even play with DNs. We'll just put an entire defensive secondary players. So that's my defense. My defense, we got Chris Jenkins, Al Woods, Jason Babin, Hugh Douglas. We've got Demario Davis, Jonathan Vilma, Ty Law, James Hasty, Steve Atwater, Ronnie Lott, Ed Reed. And who's going to coach the team? Got a couple options. Bill Parcells is an option. Pete Carroll's an option. But the real only answer is, of course, the devil himself, Bill Belichick. So coaching might take us all the way. But that is it. That is our all-time Jets, maybe possibly Hall of Fame team. The ghost of Jets past that weren't really Jets Hall of Fame team. I don't know what to call this. I got to brand this. I got to figure it out before I post this episode. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope that was fun. A little stroll down memory lane with some of these players that you may have forgotten actually played for this team. But the last thing I want to do before we get out of here is answer the trivia question. So my question was, NFL teams love Uncrustables, which are the mini peanut butter and jellies. What team in 2024 ate the most Uncrustables, and how many per week did they eat? The answer is the Denver Broncos. 700 Uncrustables per week, blowing away the number 2 team, which was the Seattle Seahawks, with 320 Uncrustables per week. Now, unfortunately, this report, there were 7 or 8 teams that actually, or 8 teams, did not provide the data of how many Uncrustables they eat. And one of those teams is the Jets. So I have no idea. And I need someone to figure out how many Uncrustables the New York Jets eat per week. But they estimate that NFL teams eat 80,000 Uncrustables a year. So I think the NFL is single-handedly keeping alive the child's school lunchtime meal of Uncrustables. So shout out to the Denver Broncos. Must be doing something right because it led you to the playoffs. And, you put up a fight against Josh Allen. So that's incredible. So that's all I got for this week. Now, if you haven't been following me on social, we've been blowing up across the platforms with some of the content we've been putting out there. So on Instagram, TikTok, JuicyJet25. Same thing with Twitter. Please follow. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, please like, subscribe, rate, review. If you're watching on YouTube, smash up the like button and please throw me a subscribe. That would help me greatly. And I really appreciate everybody listening. If you have any ideas for anything else you want to hear during this downtime over the next 6 weeks before football comes back, please let me know. I love ranking things. I love looking back in time at some of these old stories, these old players. So let me know what you want to hear, and I would love to share it. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope everybody has a great week. We'll be back next Monday. We'll be posting content all week across my socials, and we will talk to you soon. See y'all.